industrious, hardworking, and mostly no nonsense, although he liked to laugh too. In early November of 1970, I was 17 years old. I was out in Utan, where we're going to be later today, walking away from his dad's grave. And he walked over to me and put his big, strong arm around me. And he told me he loved me. And I was astonished that he would say that, because that wasn't Dad. He didn't share his emotions like that. He didn't share those feelings very much. He's like, whoa, what's going on here? And he said, I'm telling you now that I love you because I just buried my dad, and he never once told me he loved me. His whole life he never told me. He said, I want to make sure that doesn't happen either. I want you guys to know that I love you. For those of you who knew my dad, you would understand that. You know, he was, well, thank you. He was like most men of his generation and lineage. They didn't show their emotions. Strong and silent they were when it came to pain. When Dad told me that, I was shocked, because I'd never heard him say that to me before either. He saw the look of astonishment in my eye, and we had a moment of understanding as we walked away from the grave. Dad had been conformed to the image of his father, too. His father was similar. I have very few memories of Grandpa Shaw, but from what I hear, he was quite a bit the same. And he raised Dad to be the man that he was. This dad that he had was his role model. He patterned his life after him. He was a hardworking and sometimes hard-drinking man, as were a lot of people of that generation and still are. But my dad proved that he was not going to be exactly like his father. He was going to be a better man than that. His family deserved better than that. Marvin James Shaw was born, that's my namesake is from him, was born January 4th, 1929 here at East Omaha. And he lived there with Floyd and Mary and his brothers and sisters. It was not an easy childhood for Marvin. When we met to talk about this eulogy, he told me stories I'd never heard before. He told me stories about his life that he said even Lois doesn't know, and I'm not going to share them with her. He was a rascal. He was. He got in trouble, but usually didn't get caught. Okay? But it was not an easy life for him. He said times were often very tight for the family, and there was quite often a lot of strife in the household. He had to grow up strong and tough or not grow up at all. He became streetwise and street tough. He was a brawler and a hustler. He was. He dropped out of school at 16 and immediately started working at Kellogg's. On the first day of work at Kellogg's, he lost his arm in an equipment accident there. The very first day. He went back to work. He went back to school then, trying 3 different schools, but he eventually dropped out because it just wasn't working for him. His first job was telephone sales, and he hated it. Absolutely hated it. His second job was a stock boy at SS White. He worked hard there, worked very hard to become financially independent. After 5 more years, he went to work as a salesman for P.T. Barber and Sons and stayed there 40 years, retiring as the president of the company and as a successful businessman. Work, his marriage at 21 to a young beauty, Lois Taylor, and a rapid-fire arrival of children finally tamed him. But they still did not conform him. His was a firm hand of discipline, and his raised voice brought all of us kids to abject fear, didn't it? Yes, it did. But we knew he still loved us by his hard work and his teaching to us of the life skills that he had. When he was not out on his route, he spent time with us kids, fishing, camping, family outings. And what fond memories we children have of accompanying Dad on his sales trips in the summers. Long hours of talking, side fishing trips, small town diners, friendly dental staff, and cheap motel pools. 2 to 3 days straight with Dad was a vacation in itself, and great times of talking, sharing, and bonding. Over time, Dad was more and more open with his affections, but he was still locked up with an addiction to alcohol. And that, as you know, is not an easy bond to break free from. Even for the strongest of people who want to, it's not easy to break free. He was a strong man. He was physically tough, and growing up in that household made him emotionally tough. After he lost his arm at Kellogg's, he did not let that devastating accident beat him. He persevered and overcame. He challenged himself to succeed and set his mind to do so. He conquered challenges. He started a career. He got married, started a family. He won several pool tournaments and even took top honors in a golf tournament in Lincoln with only one arm. He was an avid reader. I heard that he read through the entire set of encyclopedias that we had. He loved golf. He really loved golf. And he also loved fishing, hunting, and shooting pool. He fought through financial stress, a persistent and stubbornly devoted wife, 6 rowdy kids, a household of nieces and nephews, a heart attack in 1980, an aortic embolism, and returning cancer. And yet he fought hard, like he did when he was training for the Golden Gloves in his youth. He was strong, but the alcohol was stronger. It was. It eventually drove a wedge between his friend, family, and work associates. He tried several times to stop, but he was not strong enough. Finally, years passed, and Dad was broken in his frustration and found the solution. His favorite verse was Philippians 4:13, as I said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Christ came into his life and did a powerful work in this boy from East Omaha and became his strength. Though he spent years conforming to the image of his dad, a hard-working alcoholic, Jesus took a hold of him and began a new work of conforming him to himself. He said he didn't remember the exact moment that he put his faith in Jesus. Although I'd shared the gospel with him, he told me that he, quote, blamed Joel Wolfe for his conversion. Joel Wolfe was the man who led me to Christ, but he blamed him. And I told Joe that a few weeks ago, and he laughed with me. That sounds just like Mark, what he said. What we as his family came to know and what we all saw was a man who was different. Romans 8:28 declares, for whom he foreknew, he also did predestinate to become conformed to the image of his Son, that we might be the firstborn among many brethren. God took a man who over a 45-year career fought his way to success in the dental supply industry, beginning as a sales clerk and ending up the president, using his own strength and perseverance. But it took the strong and gentle hand of God to break this man of his selfishness and free him from his addictions and his earthly father's model. I don't know if you had a chance to thumb through the Father's Day book back on the table, but his siblings and I put that together on this last Father's Day. Dad asked me to do the eulogy, and as I said, I didn't want to do it, but I thought, eulogies are telling about such good things about a person after they're gone. I thought, what a nice thing to do is tell them while they're alive. And so that's what we did as a family, and many of you came on that day. We invited friends and family over to the house while he was still alive, and he absolutely loved that. He was so full of joy that the family members came to give their last goodbyes to him. And I remember talking to him afterwards. He said, just hearing the family members out in the backyard and out in the kitchen laughing together, he said, made life worth it. All this family that he had been a part of creating, they were getting along and enjoying one another. So that was really, to me, his eulogy. That really said what needed to be said about his life. That he had all these people that came from him and that were good people. The reason we created that book was so that we could give that to Dad. So he had something from each of us siblings telling him what we thought of him, a special memory. And that's why, again, we had that day there together. I remember going on a root sales trip We would travel for a few days. Everyone knew that Marvin's word was gold. He was as honest as a man could be and kept his word to his clients. He became lifelong friends to many of them because he took the time to treat them as people, not just clients. He was serious about his work and his career, but he's also fun-loving, playful, and witty. He wanted me to say everything, these things that I could, to say who he was to this world. But one thing he wanted me to make sure that I would say, and that is, he wanted me to tell Mom that he had a great journey with you. He wanted me to tell you that he enjoyed that journey so very much, and he wouldn't have traded it for anything. Each one of us have our memories of Marvin James Shaw. I firmly believe that most of them are very positive. Some of them might have some negative things to it. But in general, he was a good man. He was an intelligent man. He knew how to talk, and we could sit and have conversations. And he was a man that people enjoyed.